So when you make up these associations, you need to make it really easy to recall from the word. Anything that is the first thing that comes to mind, the better, because when you look at it again, it's gonna come to your mind again, whatever ridiculous thing it is. And you'll find that once you start doing this, you will remember and you will think, hey man, maybe I am polluting my mind. I'm like getting all these weird name association, these stories. It's just filling up your brain with random stuff that maybe it's gonna fill up and you're not gonna remember. No, it's not true, because the thing is, when you memorize things this way, you will remember the association at first. The first week or so after you're memorizing it for some test, you remember the association. That's how you remember it. But later on, it kind of starts to sink in, okay? And you're gonna start to forget about these associations because it's unimportant. When it's unimportant, it's just gonna get stripped away, and in your brain, it's gonna be like these synapses, and it's gonna create these connections, okay? And that's how you memorize stuff. And at first, it's gonna be this weird thing because it's a chicken with it's not gonna die, and it can eat sour stuff, right? But in the end, it's gonna like strip away these things that you don't need, okay? And then it's gonna be a nice association between dinosaur and this this image of this dinosaur. It's a prehistoric bird type of thing. And then you won't remember this association that you made up anymore. So don't worry about making it too complex or anything. Now, flashcards are actually units in themselves, right? They are not associated in any order. Now, you pick any one out and you remember the association, great, okay? But what about when you want to remember something in order? So let's say you have a speech to memorize, and for me, I'm actually a very good analytical memorizer, but not dry, hard facts memorizer, not like definitions, words, and stuff like that. So I actually have to work hard at memorizing a whole speech, and I assume if you do this enough, it'll become easier and easier. What you do in memorizing a speech or like a long spew where you have to have a chronological order is you memorize the first thing, okay? Here's like 3 facts, okay? And then the conclusion, okay? It's just the first paragraph that you want to talk about. The first thing that you want to talk about, you make up some story, okay? Let's say in this speech, we want to talk about chickens and their living standards. So the first thing is, you kind of remember the first line you need to say, but sometimes you just need a hook to get you going to remember that first sentence. So let's say whatever we want to talk about chickens. So then I imagine a chicken with its head cut off, because that's kind of a ridiculous thing to remember. And you imagine this chicken with its head cut off and it's running around and blood spewing everywhere. I know it's ridiculous and gruesome, but the more crazy it is, the better. Let's say the next thing we want to talk about is their living standards and how there's a lot of chickens in a farm that gets crammed with no space. And so we imagine not just one chicken now. Let's say we have 1,000 of these headless chickens in the farm and all of them have no space. So now let's say we want to talk about the diseases they could get because of their living standards. And so I would imagine one of the chickens in the front, somehow they have a hand, a human hand, it's carrying a needle and it has some salmonella in it. And that would remind me to talk about salmonella in the chickens. You can see where I'm going here is that when you visualize something, you need to connect it somehow to the next item. Say I want to talk about a T-Rex, and the next thing right afterwards in chronological order is I want to talk about their extinction because of meteoroids or something. But I can't imagine suddenly a meteor shower coming, maybe. But rather, I want to place objects next to each other. So maybe I can imagine this T-Rex and it's holding a giant meteor. When you associate things one after another, you just kind of chain it. The dinosaur is holding a meteor, and then maybe I want to talk about the chickens afterwards. So then the chicken leg is stuck to the meteor. So right there, I have a physical connection there. And people are really good at memorizing associations and objects. So right now, I'm sure you can remember the dinosaur is holding a meteor. The meteor is connected the foot of the chicken, of the headless chicken. And suddenly this headless chicken is right next to 1,000 other chickens, right? And the 1,000 chickens right in the front, there's a chicken with a human hand that has a needle that has the word salmonella written on it, which means I want to talk about how these chickens, when their living standards, when they're having really bad living standards, they catch salmonella, and because they're standing on their own feces and stuff like that. That's a good way for memorizing things in order, memorizing speeches and stuff like that. There are methods such as memorizing the first letter of each thing. So if you have a long list of things, sometimes it's good to just take the first letter of everything and arrange it in a nice order. There's this trigonometric function I still remember because of this method, is Socha-Toa. Because of this method, I still easily remember. And from those trigonometric functions, you can easily derive all the other functions.